they back again. They want the people to go back to the square to execute them totally. The people were killed, about more than 100 men were shooting today and killed. And they're in the Zawiya hospital, which is a hospital. There's about 400 people who were injured, some of them very serious injured.
Now, that was a man called Ali talking to us on the phone from a place called Zawiya. He told us that he had video of the events that he's described, not the pictures you could see there, but of the events he described, the shooting of the people in the square. He's saying he's finding it very difficult to get that out to us, but he would send it on just as soon as it was possible. Now, with all of this violence continuing, Colonel Gaddafi's support is thinning, to say the very least. One of his cousins, one of his closest aides, that's Ahmed Khadaf al-Dam, now gone to Cairo, says he's on his way to Syria. Al-Dam saying that the regime's fierce crackdown on protesters prompted him to leave. And an influential figure in the Libyan army, you may remember hearing him on the telephone on this programme last night, around about this time, telling us that he'd switched allegiances. Well, he's now appeared on camera, Major General Suleiman Mahmoud al-Abaidi. He says Gaddafi's sold out his own people.
We thought he would be just, believe in freedom and unify the nation, but he is dividing the nation now. He also addresses other Arab leaders with arrogance. This man has an inferiority complex. I am saying this although I know I am at risk of being assassinated.
Well, that's two. Libya's justice minister, he quit 3 days ago, and he's spoken to Al Jazeera at a tribal elders meeting in the city of Al Baida, warning that Gaddafi has got biological weapons and that he won't hesitate to use them.
Tripoli is the current and the future capital of Libya. Its people know how the current regime is unjust and oppressive, but they are now oppressed in an unprecedented way. They are surrounded by military camps from the east, south and west. These camps are led by the sons of Gaddafi. We call on the international community and the UN to prevent Gaddafi from going on with his plans in Tripoli. Gaddafi owns everything. He owns weapons in the camps supervised by his sons. He also owns destructive, bacterial and chemical weapons. At the end, and when he is really pressured, he can do anything. I think Gaddafi will burn everything left behind him.
That was the former justice minister. Chilling warning from him that Gaddafi may have access still to biological and chemical weapons, even though he renounced the use of them around about 6 or 7 years ago, this being one of the reasons why he's been able to get back into the international community, saying he would get rid of his nuclear program, he would get rid of weapons of mass destruction. But it was only around about 3 months ago that in a report on chemical weapons, it was stated that Gaddafi still had around about 25 tons of sulfur and mustard gas. Whether he has the weapons to deliver them is a different question, but we're trying to find out a little bit more about that. The regime's been using state television, trying to reinforce its message that foreign elements are to blame for all of what's going wrong there. Here's Lawrence Lee.
As it tries to fight back, the Gaddafi regime is doing what it can to intimidate the opposition and stand its corner in the court of international opinion. These men, say Libyan state TV, tried to overthrow the government. To help the assertion, they also showed weapons allegedly seized from an Algerian national who they said had the aim of assassinating officials. The authorities say these are Egyptian passports which they seized, along with electronic instructions on how to commit sabotage. Inevitably, the alleged perpetrators are also interviewed, along with their confessions. Their future looks extremely bleak. And then there's the message from authority: give back the weapons and we won't harm you.
We are calling on anyone who took weapons must return them to the popular social committees in their areas. No legal action will be taken against those who return the weapons and regret taking them.
Libyan TV also aired an appearance from Gaddafi's son Saif, who once again blamed the media. He promised a sort of transparency entirely unavailable so far.
We have to understand that the conspiracy against us is not coming from Libyans. It is coming from our Arab brothers. They have used their media to spread lies and deception. Tomorrow, all media is coming and they will film everything. There is also an investigation committee, which includes foreigners. you'll discover that we were deceived. You will find that this was the biggest lie to Libyans in our history.
It's hardly surprising the government wants protesters to give their weapons back. These images from Misrata in the west, said to be the scene of new fighting after falling to the opposition, suggest the uprising has as many heavy weapons as the army. So it's understandable that foreigners who don't want to take sides in any of this, and the massive exodus goes on.
There's massacres everywhere, Benghazi and Tripoli everywhere, and I'm very, very grateful to my government, the British government, to assist me to get me out of the disasters there.
Even the Israeli government, which never allows access to Gaza from the Mediterranean, has given permission for 300 Palestinians to return.
The request was made because there is a concern for their safety and their very lives. And for humanitarian reasons, I decided to respond positively to this request.
Some of the tribes who've turned away from Gaddafi have been gathering in Al-Baida, the meeting attended by leaders from across the east of the country. They called for international intervention, perhaps from the United Nations. No sign yet. So inside Libya, the story is different from place to place. Some towns celebrate what they say is liberation. Some, like Zawiya in the northwest, only 40 kilometers away from Tripoli, are experiencing heavy fighting, suggesting it's all moving closer to the capital. Tripoli itself, the key to all of this, remains in lockdown to protect Gaddafi. There's reportedly a major anti-Gaddafi demonstration in Tripoli for Friday. No wonder foreigners want to get out. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
China's Ministry of Commerce says it suffered, quote, large-scale direct economic losses in Libya. In a statement, it said 27 Chinese camps and construction sites have been attacked and looted in the riots. But the ministry reported only a few injuries and no deaths among the 36,000 Chinese living there. Around 4,600 workers have been evacuated. And like these people, they were sent off to Beijing and Shanghai. There are a great many other Chinese and other nationalities leaving Libya, crossing into Tunisia. They have two choices. They can either go to the Egyptian side, that's in the west, or they can go to the east, to the Tunisian border. We'll talk to our correspondent there, Nazanin Moshiri. She's in Ras Ajdia. And tell us, I gather these Chinese workers, a lot of them have come through the area where you are, but they're not the only people fleeing.
No, they're not. I mean, I spoke to some of those Chinese workers, actually, the ones that you mentioned who work in construction. They were absolutely terrified. They spent 4 days, they say, just sleeping underground, unable to come out, little food and water, and just finally today have managed to make the journey. And we've just spoken to a group of Austrian diplomats, about 20 of them, who say they were shot at outside Zawiya. So they witnessed heavy gun battles going on outside Zawiya. They were extremely frightened about it. They were able to make it to this border, which is about 120 kilometers away from Zawiya. But again, on the way, another town, Zuarta, which is about 40 kilometers from where we are right now. Heavy fighting there as well.
Nazanin, what about, you mentioned the fighting there, a number of people getting out. What stories are you getting about the ratio of